Good morning and welcome to what is to be number 20 in the Shooting Straight series. When I started in September last year, I didn't think I would make 5, never mind 20 of these, as well as having a number of other projects that I am currently building up to and working on. I was originally going to make this before the Gamergate meetup in Birmingham, but decided, mainly through circumstances that were beyond my control, that the time wasn't right, to therefore postpone it until afterwards. And I have to admit, I am very pleased that I did so. I am, as always, Voice of the Forge, both on YouTube and Twitter, and I run the Forgotten Forge Games Facebook group, club night, and forgottenforgegames.co.uk website and store, even though it is in the very early stages of the web store. Now, I wanted to produce this video after being in Gamergate in Birmingham, because it was a fantastic day. It was one of those times where you are meeting, to all intents and purposes, a bunch of strangers, but they're not complete strangers because you know bits and pieces about them. Some of them you know in name only, and you are then putting a face to a name. Some of them you can recognise straight away, and as a result, you've got a ready-made conversation because it's, you're so-and-so. Oh, yes, I remember when you said this or you said that. And it can be the same way when you're just putting a face to a name, because as soon as you recognise the name, you've got that common ground. But even for those that didn't recognise me, and I, even though most of them I did actually follow, I didn't recognise them per se, it's because we're all individuals in our own right, and it is fantastic that Gamergate has actually managed to make it a year since starting. Now, I haven't been involved for a year. I've been involved since about the first week and a half of September, those first few days of September last year, and that was because of the Gamers Are Dead articles. And to some extent, I was really pleased that I missed the initial big bang and the initial explosion and straw that broke the camel's back, because I can argue quite happily that I was nothing to do with anything to do with the Zoe post or anything else. But as time has gone on, it is important to realise that, in effect, the mainstream media narrative was actually protecting an abuser. And I still find it shocking today that that is the narrative that is espoused. Just before I went to the Gamergate meetup on the Wednesday, I was involved in running, alongside another person, another games night for a different group of people, and one of them who turned up was actually an anti-Gamergate person. Now, we didn't really speak because it was pretty much a case of, oh, well, I'm friends with Zoe Quinn, which my response was, oh, lucky you. We didn't speak for the rest of the night because I didn't feel the need to. Now, apparently he felt quite nervous knowing that I was there and this, that, and the... I just ignored him. It was nothing to me. And that wasn't because I didn't like him or anything else. It was just the fact that Gamergate to me is much more than one person. It's much more than all of the literally who's. And I will say once more that any form of harassment, doxing and all the rest of it is wrong from either side. And I know that the people that I met on Saturday will all stand with me on that. We are not people that want to harass or silence or defame or ad hominem anyone. We are people that want the truth to be the in thing. And as George Orwell says, there is a time when telling the truth and standing up for the truth is a revolutionary act. And I can remember being a child, and I was brought up Catholic. I'm not even severely lapsed, I am an out-and-out, almost militant atheist. But I can remember being brought up as a child, and the one thing that they used to hammer into us as kids was, one day it will be illegal to be Catholic, it will be illegal to be Christian or to be religious. And do you have the guts, do you have that sense of belief to stand up and be counted and to say, yes, there's enough evidence to convict me, so convict me of being religious? And to me, that always rang hollow, because it's talking about having the courage of your convictions. And to me, it always rang hollow with religion because it's something that's spoon-fed to you. It's something that, in my case anyway, was pressed upon me, was forced upon me. And even at a young age, I could see the flaws in many of the Bible stories, like Noah's Ark. I think I was about 7 or 8 when I got into a lot of trouble for questioning how they all fitted on the boat and other things like that. So I was always told to shush. So I'm used to, in many ways, being told to shut up and listen, or listen and believe, as some of the others would have you have you act in the common parlance from people like Feminist Frequency and Anita Sarkeesian. So I've always rallied against that mainstream narrative in whatever field I've been in. Even from a young age, I've been able to see that there is a narrative being pressed, and it came even stronger to me when I was 16 in 1992, which dates myself, I know. I was in Romania. Now, it had only been 3 years since Nicolae Ceausescu and his family had been shot, and the country had overthrown the socialist communist party that was in power. And it had been 3 years of them slowly clawing their way back into a more moderate society. And at 16 it was something of a shock to land in an airport and be followed everywhere by a man with a gun, for no other reason that I was foreign. Now, when I went there, I have to admit there was a lot of privilege, because the people we were meeting were, in effect, the wealthy elite. We weren't there on a cultural exchange with an orphanage, we were there with one of the top schools in Romania. But they didn't shy away from the country's problems. Wherever we went, it was always honest. Yes, our country has problems, but we're working to solve them. They could see the disparity in their own lives, and they could see that there were ways to narrow that gap. And when they came to the UK, and we went to London, they were actually shocked to see people sleeping on the streets, because even in the most deprived areas, everyone had roofs over their heads. There was no one sleeping rough. They all had their places, they all had their systems. Now, not all of them had money, but they had other ways in which they could subsist. And in many ways, there were many parts of the country which had a subsistence economy. And that brought back to me, again with a mainstream media narrative, just how these news outlets can portray an entire country based on a set of 2 or 3 images and completely ignore 95% of the reality. So I've known for a very long time that the national press, that the newspapers, the TV, the radio, they all have to be taken with a pinch of salt, and you should always check more than one source. So when I got involved with Gamergate, the first thing I did was I read for about a week straight before I even thought about forming an opinion, because I wanted to see it from both sides. And I saw people that were going, oh, it's a shitstorm, oh, it's too difficult, oh, there's so much to read and so much to understand, I can't be bothered. And it's these people that have the apathy. These are the people that let the evil men flourish, as the saying goes. All it takes for evil to flourish is for good men to do nothing. And I can see after this weekend that good men and women of all nationalities, backgrounds, we are so much against this narrative of hate, of victimhood. I mean, I find it strange that over the last 24 hours I've seen Chrissy Hines getting so much flack for coming out and said that things that she's done put her in a vulnerable position, so she has to accept some of the responsibility. And the feminists have rounded on her like she's committed heresy. Well, to them, she has committed heresy, because she's actually turned round and said, we're not all weak and willing wallflowers with no agency. We do have to, at some point, acknowledge that we could have done things differently. And I always think that we talk about rape and sexual assault in this very guarded term, because at the end of the day, it is emotive. It is probably the worst thing that one human being can visit on another, because even murder, that has an end point, that stops. Whereas any kind of injury that is inflicted, whether mental or physical, that lasts and stays with you for the rest of your life, is a horrendous burden to that individual. And I speak with some experience, having a nerve injury of my own, which I got through professional work, which is a completely different thing to what I'm saying here. It's just that I can empathise to some degree at just how horrific this act can be. Because all I've got to do is magnify my own experience several fold, and I begin to get an idea. I get an inkling, shall we say, of what it would be like for the mental and physical trauma. Now, it was interesting that as I'm recording this, I've just finished listening to the Radio 4 Today programme, and on that there is a mention of all these cases where this feminist, in order to discredit Chrissy Hines, was talking about incest, about date rape, about family rape, the abuse of children, to cover up this whole statistic about rape. And she was conflating all of these different crimes into saying that 80 to 90% of rapes are done by people that you already know, acquaintances, work colleagues, people that you have some kind of nodding acquaintance with, and that the total stranger rape is something of a fallacy. And yet, the narrative has been for years that the strange men that you don't know are the rapists, that anyone around you could be a rapist. And it seems to me that they were trying to conflate two different ideas. Now, to get back to the Gamergate in Birmingham meetup, it was very interesting to see the kinds of people that turned up and what everybody had to say. And it was great to see the different backgrounds, different livelihoods, the differences that being in a room with these people that you've been speaking to and interacting with for a year can have. And it reminded me of an avalanche or landslide. And I prefer the landslide metaphor because then we don't have snowflakes and special snowflake and analogies. We can just go with pebble. And if you throw a pebble into a pond, it has ripples. It has effects far greater than the initial splash. And I believe that Gamergate as a whole is this massive rock that has been thrown into a lake, as it were, and the ripples are still spreading. And we can do so much more and keep ripples spreading out as time goes on. But I also like the analogy of a landslide, because we have this hegemony, we have this huge, great narrative that has been forced upon us on all sides, in music, in film, in atheism, with Elevatorgate and Skeptic, and all these other places. I mean, we've even had it with heavy metal as well. And we gamers have been the first to turn around and say no. And just the act of saying no is in itself a pebble rolling down a hill. And as that pebble has rolled down the hill, it's gathered other pebbles. Now, each one of us individually cannot do a huge amount. They say that one man cannot change the world. But one man can inspire another. One man can inspire a woman. One woman might be able to inspire 10 men. We can all inspire each other. And I think this is what Gamergate has really been about. It's the additive effect of every new voice that we can add into the fold. The cumulative effect of each of us, just that little bounce down the hill might just knock someone with a word or a phrase and encourage them to either shift a little bit, which makes it easier for another pebble to move, or themselves move. Now, obviously, some of us are bigger pebbles than others, and I say that in relation to people like Sargon of Akkad and myself. I am a very small pebble, whereas others like Sargon and Shemi and Mega Mike, who've been able to put on and run these events, they become much bigger pebbles. Whether it's the size or the mass or the acceleration, it doesn't matter. It's the fact that we may be able to knock into another pebble and accelerate their momentum, which means they can hit harder, hit faster, and have more impact. And this is the beautiful thing, is that we are now starting to see this landslide take effect. Many episodes ago, I believe in April, I did a talk on sad puppies and the Hugos, and it's been interesting to see that despite the warnings and despite the efforts that were stated back then about what was likely to happen if the social justice warriors, if the gatekeepers of the communities didn't relinquish their hold, then our narrative and our ability to see how these cliques control and gatekeep content becomes ever more transparent. And rather than let people play fair, they burnt the awards. In 1 year, we managed to double the amount of no awards in the previous 75-year history of the awards events. And I think it's time that we turned round and went, you know what, why don't we have our own? Why don't we get in contact with someone like Waterstones or HMV or big names on the high street, and we pull together and go, you know what, we no longer need fandom. We can just go to the horse's mouth and we can get people who buy their books at these locations, we can get people to sign up, and then we can use the sales records or a voting system in store. And we can just completely bypass the whole of the awards ceremony stranglehold by having a vote which is free to everybody, regardless of the amount of money that other people spend. We just make it free. And if we make it free, we enfranchise everybody. And if we enfranchise everybody, then everybody gets a say. And this is what is starting to happen with games journalism. For too long, we have had a vested interest in control of the gaming media. For too long, we have had people that have had websites with massive followings that have been free to give op-ed pieces because they have the backing of their sponsors to say pretty much what they like. For too long, we have had collusion with video game bloggers and others where they're put up at a fancy hotel, given free Alienware laptops, given free access to content, and that in return they have to give a positive review. And we have started to reverse this trend. We have started to see that the American rules have become much tighter in terms of disclosing obligations for someone's comment. And I hope that we can move forward into such a situation where people like myself, who really speaking is such a small minnow it isn't funny, can actually turn around and go, you know what, I've seen this game, I really like it, and whilst I have very little influence, it's an aggregate effect where I can tune in to 400 other people, and between the 400 of us we may have 390 positives and 10 negatives. Why do we have the 10 negatives? Well, because not everyone likes the same game. If you ask me to review the latest, greatest Call of Duty, I am going to have a different experience from those who play those games regularly, because I don't choose to play them all that often. At the moment, I've been playing mainly racing games, but that's because of the endurance race. I can just zone out. I can just take the game, zone out, 408 corners, done. Whereas what I genuinely prefer to play are action-adventure, things like Red Dead Redemption and Binary Domain, but I love RPGs, and I especially love Japanese RPGs. So you ask me to review something like Disgaea 5, I'm going to be coming to it with a much deeper knowledge of what the game is supposed to be, and therefore I may be more hypercritical of some of the elements, which may be a bit more arcane to people who have never played the series before. But to me, I know what I am expecting from a Disgaea title than I would be from someone who's never played the game before. And we need that breadth of experience. We need people to be able to have different... what's the word I'm looking for? Different specialities. We need different expertise, shall we say, in different things. But I have to admit that I have been energised like never before to carry on this, with the presentation and the wonderful people that I've met. Just being able to sit in the same room and to be able to discuss nonchalantly the smallest things, whatever we wanted to talk about, just because we were there, sometimes with a pint of alcohol, sometimes with a pint of cola, just there, just being able to speak and interact and see people as they are, and they're no longer just words on a screen. I believe that when you look at all the Gamergate meetups that are happening, I am totally convinced that 5 years from now we will have people with these coloured squares of fabric that we see in all these other conventions that have been going every year to each one, and we will be able to see those who are in it for the long haul, because everybody will come in and drop out, and I'm sure that I will as well. I hope that I will be able to stay in longer than most, because this is a passion for me. This is something that I identify with. I am a gamer. I am someone that does not want identity politics in games. I want the best games out there. Now, if that means that we have an oppressive shitlord who's got a gay best mate and whatever, I don't care, as long as the storyline and the characterization is brilliant. I don't care about shoehorned characters just for the sake of having that token represented. I want the best stories possible, the best gameplay possible, and the best stories possible, because that's what brings us together, a shared love of storytelling, of problem solving. And I have to admit, Shabaz's speeches, both on the Sargon of Akkad's Drunken Confessions video, and when he's dressed in the French maid's outfit at the main event, I think they were stirring stuff. They were the sorts of things that we need to hear. We need to be able to look back at this and say, this was the foundation step. We had managed a year when people thought we would be dead in 2 weeks. If they think that we're going to be dead in 2 weeks and we last a year, how long are we going to last if we're going to be around, if they think we're going to be around for another 6 months or another year? This is something that cannot stop. We have to keep the momentum going. We have to keep the pressure on. We have to keep people informed. And the narrative is slowly starting to change. The mainstream press is starting to listen to what we have to say. And I have to admit, I was disappointed that we didn't have anyone turn up to the meetup that to actually look at what we were saying and look at what we were doing. But that, it's a by the by. It's something that we can point at and say, look, this is the mainstream media narrative, this is what's been going on. Next time we can turn around and say, you didn't listen to us here before, this is the nth one that we've done and you're still not interested. Why? What is it that is stopping the interest? And then we can explore the reasons why it may be that we're not getting the coverage. And it could be something just as simple as, we don't want to touch that with a 9-foot barge pole because of the narrative that we've heard, to people not actually understanding just how much of a deal this actually is. And I want to say thank you to anyone who's managed to make it this far through the video, to say thank you for everyone who turned up and made it a success, to thank everybody that made me feel welcome, and I hope that I made people feel welcome in return. And I thank Shemi, Mega Mike, and everybody else for putting this together so that we can actually stand firm and say, you know what, we're gamers, we're proud to be gamers, yes, we've got a sense of humour, and we will mock the other side. Why do we mock the other side? Because it shows it's got no power over us. This is why the first thing that dictators ban is humour. Because it shows that you're not afraid of them, you're not towing the line, and humour and jokes and everything else are the most powerful weapon that we have. So, shitpost ahoy! I thank everybody for listening. I am, as always, Voice of the Forge on Twitter and on YouTube. I thank you very much for listening, and I hope that this will be the first of many more videos to come over the coming weeks, months, and possibly years. I honestly can't believe I've made 20 videos just in this subject within a year. I think so far I'm beating Anisi Sarkeesian's record, and I haven't had $160,000 to do it with either. I'm obviously doing something wrong. Thank you for listening, and I hope that everybody has had a great time, and we continue to have a great time for the foreseeable future and many months to come. Thank you for listening, and goodbye.